Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Fresh Out the Podcast, the greatest podcast in this universe. I'm the board game guru, game master extraordinaire, Jahananan.
And I'm the professional media and movie mastermind, the Funhouse, Drew Munhausen. And actually, this is the 145th iteration of me and Jahan both. They just, every time, something happens, one of us dies, they print out new ones, and we're now on the 145th iteration of both of us.
Because we live action-packed lives.
This is an expendable podcast that's been reprinted 145 times.
145 times. No duplicates yet.
I guess technically it'd be reprinted 144 times, because the first one was the original.
I guess that's true. Talking about clones, that's weird. I wonder why.
It is. Well, there's a new movie came out this past weekend.
Oh.
That has to do with cloning and expendables and all those terms that are science fiction terms in that movie that's based off of a novel. Before we do that, I did want to briefly mention the Oscars because we had things going on last week and weren't able to record a new episode, so I didn't get to do a Oscar wrap up here. I did do a live show over on Nerdtropolis where we talked about it in depth, but here I did just want to say I believe that my fresh pick of the week did come true. Now, granted, it was kind of a lowball pick. I can't really brag about this too braggadociously because on February 11th, I did predict Nora would win Best Picture. It did indeed win Best Picture, but I feel like that was pretty well foreshadowed at that point when it had, won the PGA and the DGA. It seemed like all the stars were aligning for that to happen, and it did indeed happen. So still, I get to make that another fresh prediction come true, that Nora won Best Picture.
Excellent. Yeah, the Oscars are pretty good.
Yeah, did you watch it at all, John?
I watched a good amount of it. I really liked Conan at the halfway point saying we're halfway through, so that means it's time for Kendrick Lamar to come out and call Drake a pedophile. That was pretty funny. I don't know, man. It was a good show. It was entertaining for sure.
I like to hear from those who aren't invested in the same way that I am. Like, was it even entertaining? Like, this
it was
thing
entertaining.
That I, invest myself in every year. Do people even care? And so I'm glad to hear that you were entertained. It seems like it's Conan's hosting duties are pretty well received all around. Everybody seems to be positive on that.
I am, man. Big fan of Conan. He doesn't miss, man. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, I agree. Otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good show. Some pretty predictable awards, but Mikey Madison winning Best Actress was a pleasant surprise for me, as I'm a really big fan of Honora and was happy to see her win. Sad for Demi Moore. I did like her in The Substance, but happy for Mikey and happy for Honora. And happy for Sean Baker, who, I don't know if you know this, Jahan, he set a record as the first person to win 4 Oscars in one night for the same movie.
Oh.
Because he did edit the movie, so he won Best Editing, won Best Director, Best Picture, and Best Original Screenplay were all awards that he got to take home. The only other person, I believe if I have my information right, the only other person to win 4 Oscars in the same night is a man named Walt Disney, if you've heard of him. But he didn't win them all for the same movie, which is the difference. So Sean Baker won them all for Honora. And next year they're adding a new Oscar category for Best Casting. That's a new one that'll be introduced in next year's show. Had they had that in the show this year, probably pretty good chance that Honora would have won that too, and Sean Baker would have walked out with 5 Oscars, which is pretty insane. But yeah, so some history was made. The Oscars, I love them. I'm happy with them. Also happy to not talk about a lot of those movies pretty much ever again as we move forward into 2025.
There's a lot of controversy this year. Yeah, we'll glaze right past that.
Yep, exactly. So, we'll set. Yeah, honestly, is anybody else, now that the award season is done, will anybody ever speak about the movie Emilia Perez other than me mentioning it right now? Probably not. No. I don't think anybody's ever going to talk about it.
I didn't know a lot about it when it was happening on the Oscars, but since I've seen clips, and I'm like, oh my God, That is not a good movie.
I've seen. I was listening to something. I can't remember what it was, but somebody was making jokes out there on the internet about how like what movie did Zoe Saldana win her Oscar for is going to be like a great trivia question
Oh
15
my
years from
God,
now,
it
like,
will
because that
be.
movie's going to be so memory hold and forgotten, which I think is pretty funny.
I
So
mean,
anyway,
I literally heard a man sing in a mostly flat tone. We'll turn a penis into a vagina.
that is a
And
scene from that movie.
I don't know what to do with that. That's oh man, they should have had a sensitivity reader or like just a panel. They should have paneled that a little bit. But okay, moving on.
Yeah. We will move on to Mickey 17, a recent new release movie that you and I both got a chance to see. And I will say, I read the book beforehand. I did finish it before going to see the movie, for better or for worse. I'll kind of talk about that when I get into my thoughts on the movie. But Jahan, I'm going to let you kick it off talking about the Bong Joon-ho directed Mickey 17 starring Robert Pattinson. What did you think?
Big fan of Bong Joon Ho. Love his work. One of my favorite movies of all time is his Memory of Murder. Very, very good. This it definitely had his fingerprints on it. It had sort of like, it had the, what do you call it? The dystopian vibes of Snowpiercer mixed with kind of the alien creatures reminded me of the Host. Like it's just he's putting a little bit. His fingerprints are all over this for sure. Is it his best work? Definitely not. I mean, it's hard. You can't always make your best work. Sometimes you make other movies, and I'm sure he enjoyed making this. I enjoyed this movie. I thought Robert Pattinson did a great job. With his different takes on the different Mickeys. Sometimes he was good at showing different personality traits and whatnot. His character was just kind of derpy. Just I don't know. There's a lot more comedy in this than I was really expecting. Kind of felt like Hitchhiker's Guide. Like it was just like a lot more. It was a lot funnier than I expected. A lot more sexual too. And
there's a lot of sex in this movie.
There's a lot of sex in the movie, and a lot of the sex is very funny. I thought that Ruffalo killed it as his role. He was so good. Uma Thurman was absolutely hateable, vile.
Tony Collette.
Oh, is that Tony Collette?
It is Tony Collette.
I thought it was Uma Thurman.
Nope.
Oh, okay, well, it looked like her, and yeah, okay, Tony Collette.
They look alike.
They look a lot alike, and I didn't look into it, but yeah, she, whoever she is, she was hateable, and it was a solid movie, man. Definitely entertaining, worth seeing. Was the plot the best? I mean, it had elements of a good plot, but I feel like the alien stuff kind of was like a detour in a direction they didn't really need to go with this. I don't know. That whole plot line got kind of silly for me when they're running around, when she's cutting off tails and stuff. And sorry, Tony Collette. But yeah.
Yeah. So I read the book, and the book is more or less like a more straightforward sci-fi book, I'd say. Like Mickey is definitely kind of a scummy character in the book. Like he's got gambling debts. That's why he escapes for this mission. But the book focuses a lot more on the science of it all and the ethics of cloning and what all that means. And the book kind of goes back and forth between like pushing the story forward a little bit and then like, let's go back and explain the science or the origin of this thing. And then like push the story forward and go back and explain X, Y, or Z. It does that a lot. But the book, I don't want to say it takes itself more seriously because there is a comedic tone at times in the book, but like it's just more straightforward. And the Marshall character, who Mark Ruffalo plays, is not necessarily as extravagant or emphasized as he is in the movie. The Tony Collette character isn't even in the book that's created for the movie. So there's like a lot
That
of
makes sense
changes.
because her plot line with eating the tails or whatever seemed tacked on and unnecessary.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of one of those things where like I don't know if reading the book did myself a service or a disservice when it comes to seeing the movie. At the end of the day, I liked the movie. It's definitely Bong Joon-ho's adaptation of that book, if that makes sense. Like he really put the Bong Joon-ho spin on it, as you said. But this definitely falls more in line with like Okja than something like Parasite. Like Parasite, which is a modern masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. I love that movie. Okja is a fun movie, but a little bit more, emphasizing its themes and messages with a little bit more slapstick to it. Mickey 17 at times feels like it wants to be a cartoon, but at times wants to be
Kinda,
a
yeah.
like a political satire or farce. It wants to be a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, it is pretty fun for a lot of it. The
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson's really good. One thing they did that was kind of interesting in the movie, in the book, the clones of Mickey are the exact same personality, the exact same person. Like it sets that up that they are, printed to be the same. The movie takes a little bit more liberty with that of like each print of Mickey may have like it's the same person, but different personality traits might take
Yeah.
more of a center in certain versions as others. So like the Mickey 18 print in this movie, because we see in the trailer like a lot of this has to do with there ends up being two of them simultaneously, and the 18 character's a lot more aggressive and things, and that was new for the
He's like
movie.
a he's like a noir detective.
Yeah.
He's so gritty. Yeah, no, that part also felt like something they added late because they didn't mention the changing of personalities until that point in the movie, and I was like, I don't remember that being a thing. That's weird. So like, yeah, I don't know. Just stay true to the source material. You'll do better. But hey, it was still good. The female lead surprised me because I was like, I know her, and I was like, oh, I just watched Blink twice, and she was the
Oh
lead.
yeah, Naomi Aki.
Yeah, Naomi Aki. She was very good in that, and I don't know it was a solid sci-fi all the way around. I wish they had leaned more into the political satire because I was actually really enjoying that. But all in all, it's solid 7, I would say for me.
I'm right there with you. I think I'm giving this a 7 too. Kind of how I felt about the book. I finished the book and I was like, this is like a 6.5 or a 7. I hope the movie's better. And I feel like there are things the movie did better and there's things the book did better. But ultimately, I had a fun time at the movie. So I'm with you. It's a 7 out of 10.
I'm always happy also to see my boy Steven Yeun in anything, and he was very scummy in this, and I liked it.
I really like him. I thought he was wasted a little bit in this. I could have seen more of
I could
him
have
or
seen
had
more
him
of
be a
him.
little bit more fleshed out.
I could have seen more. I could have had him be more of a plot point, but I don't know. He was more of a side story. You know what I mean? And it was fine. It was good to see him though.
I really like Robert Pattinson as a movie star or almost anti-movie star because he really doesn't want to be a movie star, even though he is. I mean, he's Batman currently, so like whether you like it or not, you're a movie star. But we saw him have kind of this debut in a Harry Potter movie, and then from there go on to get the
Twilight.
Twilight role, and then he kind of did everything that he possibly could to distance himself from Twilight for like a decade before then taking on another big franchise role in Batman. And so that being said, I think that there were a lot of we talked about this with the Batman. If you go back to the episodes that we did, 3 years ago, however long ago that was when that movie came out. I think I said it then. I'm like, this guy's really talented, and even though there's the joke is like, oh, he's the sparkly vampire from Twilight, like he
Hey,
did a lot of different,
hey,
unique
Drew.
things.
That's the skin of a killer.
Yeah, sure. But anyways, I I just think he's so much fun to watch. He's such a good performer, and he's out there doing things and being weird, and that's what I'm here for. So I think that this movie is worth going to see for the Pattinson performance alone, plus Mark Ruffalo being this Trumpian political figure, just super out there with these fake teeth and
I love the
everything.
fake teeth, dude. They were so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty great. So
And I don't know what was
yeah,
up with him. Like, there was definitely something off with that guy's brain, and he played it very well, and I enjoyed it.
yes, absolutely.
But
So
yeah,
that's
yeah, Robert Pattinson. Yeah, when he was announced as Batman, I was like, I'm not gonna make any judgments. I'm gonna let it happen. And then I was pleasantly surprised. So I'm all on board on the Pattinson train at this point.
keep going. My dog just busted in here. I'm kicking him out.
Oh no, he busted in there. You better clean it up, man. It's gross. I'm gonna keep it going though. Hey, Drew, did you watch any movies this week?
I did. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, you're good.
Corgi that likes to lean against the door while I'm in here recording, and he managed to push it open, and then came in and decided to start chewing a bone behind me, and I could hear him chewing his bone. I was like, "No, can't
That's
have you doing this while I'm trying to
it's
podcast."
pretty funny. Yeah, no, one of our cats leans against the bathroom door whenever someone's in there, and it's always funny.
I did go see another new release movie. It actually is out today in theaters, and it is called Opus. And Opus is a new A24 film directed by Mark Anthony Green, starring Io Edebiri from The Bear fame. Also stars
Dude,
John
I
Malkovich, Juliette
love Io
Lewis.
Beery so much. She's awesome.
She's great, and this movie is kind of like a thriller, A24 thriller in the same vein as something kind of like Midsommar, which is a movie that I really love. And the premise of this is that essentially a few members of the media are invited out to this like 90s pop superstar is coming out of retirement to do to with a new album, and he's been basically retired for 30 years. And so he invites members of the media to come to like his compound and preview, sample the album. And when they get to and Io Beery is one of the, she's a magazine writer that gets invited out to this along with a few other, like all different mediums are covered. Like there's a TV host that Juliette Lewis plays. There's a podcaster. There's a paparazzi photographer. Like there's all these different people that all have history with Moretti, the superstar, who's played by John Malkovich, who's playing this like Lady Gaga kind of David Bowie mixed, just very auteur driven artist, and it's a fun performance from him. It's one of those movies where clearly, upon arriving, Io Beery's character like knows that something is not right with this place, but nobody else is willing to admit it, and it's kind of like weird things start happening, and she's trying to get to the bottom of it. And I thought it was a fun ride and had some genuinely good moments of tension and things. But the problem with this movie is that every single thing that happens, you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of like Get Out, or oh yeah, this is kind of like Midsommar. Oh, this is kind of like The Menu, or Bodies, 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 or all these other different movies that I think kind of did things that this movie is trying to do, but all of those movies did it better. So this movie just kind of feels like it's kind of ironic for a movie titled Opus, which is like could be a defining
Yeah,
work.
it's kind of
This
funny.
almost feels, I don't want to say plagiarized. I think that's being too harsh, but like it's like recycled bits from other movies that do it better being used here. That being said, I think it's still a fun experience for the most part, and you can go see it for the performances and people that you like in it. But I think I was just wanting more. Io Edebiri is good though. She brings a little bit more to it than just your typical scared female protagonist who's the eyes and ears of the audience. Like she has some grit to her. You are worried for her, but you're never like scared for her in the same way because she is a female who can defend herself in the movie, which I think is fun. And she just brings a good energy. I really like her, and she's proving to be versatile and do a whole lot of different types of movies. So.
And
Yeah,
she killed it on SNL as well.
yeah, she's great. So that's Opus. It's out in theaters now. I have a couple other movies I can get through quickly. That these were watches before the Oscars that I was catching up on. Did you watch Flow, Jahan? Did we talk about Flow?
I do not believe so.
Okay, I couldn't remember. This is an animated movie. It was nominated for Best Animated Feature. I
Oh, with the
think it was.
cats.
Yes, it's about a cat. I believe it's a Latvian movie, if I have that right. Yeah, Latvian
Yes.
movie. And animated, there's no dialogue in this movie because it's all from the perspective of animals. And the premise is basically there's, you know, on Earth where there's no humans anymore, and then all of a sudden the world just kind of starts flooding. The water levels keep rising, and this cat's just trying to stay alive and stay afloat and meet some other animals. And there's some the animation's really cool. It almost has this it's like, while feeling somewhat low budget, it has this kind of beautiful watercolor look to it that I really liked, and I thought it was solid. It did end up winning Best Animated Feature, which is great. I think I personally would have given it to The Wild Robot, a movie that I really loved this year. But Flow, I thought was okay. It's fine. I don't know what else to say. It's about a cat.
Yeah,
And there's
not your
water
first
and a
pick.
boat.
I got it.
Yeah, not my first pick.
You were gonna go with what is that? Lupita Nyong'o's in The Wild Robot, right?
Yes, she is.
I want to
Now,
see
a
that.
movie that had I seen it in 2024 would have been on my top of the year list for sure, but I didn't see it till right before the Oscars. A movie called Nickel Boys. And this movie was nominated for Best Picture and I think Best Screenplay, Adapted Screenplay. And that's it. But didn't really get recognized any other way. And which is a shame because this probably, had I seen it in 2024, would have been one of my favorite movies of the year. I mean, it's based off of a novel called The Nickel Boys, which I think is a Pulitzer Prize winning novel. And the premise is I don't want to, I mean, it's based on a book, so it's not like I can give too much away. But basically, it's about these two boys who are at like an abusive reform school in the 60s, and they become, close friends, and it's about their friendship. But the interesting thing about how this movie is shot is that it's shot entirely from a first-person point of view, so it switches between the two main characters, and I think the way it's told brings a much more intimate feel to the movie, and like really seeing what's happening from these characters' perspective brings a whole different depth to it. And it's a very powerful movie, some strong performances, some really difficult subject matter. It's definitely not an uplifting movie. This is a very, very raw movie, but it's so good. It's so good. Like, this movie is great. And I think in a different year, it would have gotten more attention at the Oscars. But such is the Oscars. We've always talked about it. It's not always the best movies that win or that get recognized. And Nickel Boys is a movie that got overlooked this year, but it's one of the best movies of the year. I watched this on MGM Plus. So if you have an MGM Plus subscription, you can catch it there. But Nickel Boys is very moving and very good. I highly recommend it.
Excellent. I'll check it out.
The only other movies I have, and this is more of like, I started watching the old Star Trek movies because I'm not a Star Trek guy. Are you a Trekkie, Jahan?
More than I realized. I actually think on a lot of levels I prefer it to Star Wars. I think the universe I think it's better written in a lot of ways. It's not as it's not. I mean, it doesn't have space wizards, but Star Trek's pretty badass, man. And I really enjoy the latest trilogy that they dropped with Chris Pine. Those movies slap, dude. Those movies are like better than they have any right to be. That's a solid trilogy.
And before now, those were my only exposure to Star Trek. Those were the only Star Trek things I'd seen. I like those movies too.
I grew up
I've
watching
never seen
it.
any. Yeah, I've never seen the original series. I've never seen the Next Generation, which I know people love, or any of the other series that they've done, or even current ones that they are doing on that are on Paramount Plus and such. But I was like, I'm gonna go back and watch Star Trek: The Motion Picture because I've never seen it. I watched it. It's super long. It's kind of dull. It was, a big deal at its time, but ultimately, like, it's a pretty boring movie. Like, it feels like it's 5 hours long, even though it's, just over 2 hours.
Which one did you watch?
But the motion picture, the 1970 something movie when after the Star Trek the
Oh, it's
original
literally Star Trek the motion picture.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. This was, they had the original series. It ended like almost a decade later. They were going to resurrect the series and make a new series. But then Star Wars was so successful. They were like, never mind, make it into a movie. So they adapted what they had for a new season of Star Trek into a movie that brings back Kirk and Spock and, all of your favorite Star Trek characters. And they made a movie. Ultimately, that movie is pretty slow and boring, but has some cool ideas in it. And it was a big deal for Trekkies at the time because it brought back their beloved characters after nearly a decade of absence. So, it was a big deal at the time. Then I watched Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, which is the big one. This is the one that everybody loves.
Yeah.
And it rules. And this was more what I was wanting to see. And then it continued, Jahan. I watched Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. I watched Star Trek 4, which I think is The Voyage Home. And I watched Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier. Like, these have just become comfort food for me now, even though they're varying degrees of good. I'm not saying I'm a Trekkie by any means, but at least I'm getting to a point where I've seen the original cast movies.
I mean, if you want to watch one of the shows, I mean, Next Generation's where it's at, dude. Picard's the guy.
Well, I'm almost, I have a feeling that once I finish 6, what is 6 called? Undiscovered Country, I think is 6. I might be getting some of those confused. But after that, I will probably make my way into at least the movies with the Next Generation cast. With Picard and everybody. I think the first one is a crossover, if I'm remembering correctly, with Shatner and Patrick Stewart in it.
It's possible. But yeah. I mean, Star Trek's great, man. Star Trek's a fantastic franchise, man, for real. It's got some solid stuff in it.
Like, I have so many other things I want to watch, but I keep watching old Star Trek movies. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm a weird guy. What can I say?
Yeah, I've been wishing they'd bring back Chris Pine for another movie for a while now, dude.
There were talks just as recent as a few years ago, like they were going to bring him back and do something big, and then it just seems to fall apart every time, and it's a shame because I loved the first one, but I thought the third one was really good, and it seemed like they had really set themselves up for doing like whatever kind of new adventure they wanted to do, and then it just stopped. And it's a shame.
Nah, man, it's probably 3, 1, 2 is probably the order of goodness in the new trilogy, but yeah.
I might actually agree. I think I agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. The Khan one was the worst one, but it was still really good.
I remember enjoying it.
I enjoyed it, yeah.
Some people, it seems like, don't like it as much as the other two, like you said, but I remember seeing it in theaters and enjoying it, but that's the only time I've seen it.
Yeah.
So.
It's good stuff. I was not expecting a Star Trek tangent, but hey, I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here to surprise. But that's it for Fresh Movies of the Week. For somebody, I hadn't been watching movies for a while. I was really invested in the video games I was playing, and that has kind of changed, and I'm back to movies, and I've watched a lot recently. So it's been good to be watching some movies again.
Yeah, my everything's been thrown off. I got the kid, and it takes up a lot of your time. And I've been like reading again, and like I don't know, my time's just
good.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely good. And yeah, I'm reading the Fourth Wing, which is some new fantasy thing that everyone's all up in arms about. It's about dragons.
I need to check this out.
Yeah, you can check it out for sure. I got that, and then I got Mistborn by Sanderson. See what
you
all
know
the...
of the Mistborn series. I have not Mistborn. What's the other one? The King, Way of Kings series. Is that it? Am I getting them? I might be getting them confused.
You might be getting them confused. Talking about the King Killer Chronicles.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a different. That's Patrick Rothfuss, and that is the Name of the Wind. And I think the Name of the Wind is fantastic.
No, I'm talking about The Way of Kings,
Oh, okay, we're
which
talking about different things.
is it's
So you
his
are
brand's
talking
the
about Sanderson.
Stormlight Archive. That's what it's called, the
Oh,
Stormlight
yeah,
Archive.
classic. I hear good things.
Yeah, I mean, it is a super dense read, and if I was like way nerdier, I'd probably get super into it. But like for somebody that reads casually, this is a 1,000-page book, and I got maybe 300 pages into it before I started to stall out. It has some really, really cool fantasy lore and some really great characters, and it is really well written. I just did not have the time to sit and read it, especially at that time. Like I had
Yeah.
another kid born around then, and it just stopped.
I'm trying to
Mickey,
read while I'm holding Rohan because like I want him to see me reading and like
yeah, no,
kind
that's a
of
good
like,
idea.
have positive thoughts on it. I don't know, but yeah, it's still
Yeah,
really
you
hard.
couldn't read holding a baby and reading this big old Brandon Sanderson book up because your arm would just fall off.
Yeah. No, that's fair, man. Hey, no one wants to hear about books. Books suck, right? Fresh
Yeah,
TV
we're
though.
just a bunch of nerds.
We love TV. Hey, man, we've been watching some TV. Have you seen the new Daredevil Born Again series?
I have seen the first two
I've seen the first
episodes.
two.
I have not seen the third episode that debuted this week, so I still need to catch up.
Yeah, me
But
too.
I did watch the premiere episodes.
What do you think?
I think it's
First,
okay.
what were your thoughts on the original series, the Netflix
I
series?
so yeah, I did not watch the third season of the
Okay.
Netflix series. I watched the first two. I enjoyed them, but I feel like they suffered from that Netflix kind of. They don't do this anymore. This is a product of 10 years ago, right? Like the first season of Daredevil premiered in 2015. And this was when they had these seasons. They pushed them to like 13 episodes. So they were a little bit overlong. They're a little bit overstuffed at times. Whereas like, man, if those episodes, if you could go back and cut them back to like a really solid 8 episodes, I think that those seasons would flow better. But ultimately, I liked that show. I liked what it did with Daredevil, the dark and gritty
Yeah.
tone, the big one take fights, and how brutal some of those fight scenes were, and then adding the Punisher into season two. Like it was doing everything right, and it was doing justice to the character. I think just at the time that the third season came out, I was like, I hadn't been following everything else. Like I didn't watch all of Jessica Jones or Luke Cage or Iron Fist, and so I just kind of fell off of those
It
shows.
was hard to stay
And
caught up on all that stuff, man. I managed, and man, am I glad I did. All of it except for Iron Fist is solid. Iron Fist sucks.
the good news is I do feel like Born Again, the new essentially resurrection of this series on Disney Plus and bringing these characters back and into the MCU, I think it's a success because it manages to replicate the tone and feel of the Netflix show while still feeling new and fresh. And I do feel like new viewers can jump into it.
Yeah, you can
There's
jump
a
into it.
lot. There is a lot there for those that are fans of the original and who really followed it closely. But I don't feel like it's hard to be invested without having seen that. You
Yeah.
definitely get a little bit more out of like the Bullseye character in the beginning and things like that. I don't want to go
What
into too
happens?
much.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into spoilers, but there's some big events that happened in the first episode that set the tone for the show. And I think there's also a moment in the first episode where, not to spoil, but I think everybody would know this is going to happen at some point. But like Daredevil, or I should say, Murdoch,
Matt Murdock.
Matt
Yeah,
Murdock, and Wilson Fisk have a face to face moment, and it's very very good, and I was very invested in that. And then I thought the second episode like had some slow moments, but it ends really strong,
Oh my
and it's setting up some cool
God.
things.
Yeah.
So like I overall enjoy it, but I sometimes feel the same way about it that I felt about the Netflix show, which is some really great action. I like the character work, I like the tone, but sometimes I get a little bit, I start as soon as I start to like lose interest, it does something that brings me back
No.
in. So that's how I feel about it. I think otherwise well made, well acted. There's been some good action so far. I had a friend that was complaining about the first episode and the first action scene that does happen in it, and being a little bit too like CG heavy and things like that in it. But none of that really bothered me. Like I like recognizing that Daredevil is a comic book
Yeah.
character, but while still being brutal and having like the one take aspect to it. I don't know. None of that bothered me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like a little bit it bothered me, but that fight scene was awesome. And it was a comic book fight scene. Daredevil versus uh, Bullseye. Bullseye sometimes is hard to do right. Colin Farrell can attest to that. You know, sometimes he comes off as a silly fucker that throws Tic Tacs at people. You know, like it's not always the best. This guy, absolutely, I take him seriously. He was a hardened, ruthless killer, and it was an awesome fight. So yeah, I'm coming from a different place than you a little bit here. The Netflix show, one of my favorite superhero adaptations. Period. Was the Daredevil series. The other series are fine. I really like Jessica Jones, and I really liked Daredevil. This resurrection here, I've been waiting for it. I can't believe it actually happened. I like where they're going with the whole Wilson Fisk mayoral run that they're doing
Me
here.
too.
Which I actually read one of the comic book runs. He actually does this, and it's the comic book run where Elektra takes over the mantle of Daredevil, and Wilson Fisk outlaws vigilantes as the mayor, and then he gets like the Thunderbolts to enforce the rules, and it's kind of messed up. But yeah, man, the first episode, honestly, like I really enjoyed the beginning. I enjoyed other parts of it. It was a good episode. I wasn't sold after episode 2 ended, and you know what I'm talking about. The end of episode 2, this show is fire. It is fire, dude. Like it they got to that darkness, they got to that hopelessness, they got to the gritty characters fighting up against forces that of just deep-seated systemic corruption deep within, like, you know, the government, police force, everything. Like they're back to it, and it feels good, man. I think that I think they're actually going to do it justice. I have faith. So yeah.
I do as well. I honestly there's no lack of interest or anything on my part for why I haven't watched the third episode. It's literally just been this week has been really crazy, and I haven't had a chance to watch it. So hopefully this weekend I'll get a moment to sit and watch it. I think the third episode's like 40 minutes ish in that realm. I was surprised when the first episode I saw was an hour long, because I feel like the Disney Plus Marvel shows typically run in like the 35 to 40 minute range. And I'm like, oh man, they're going to be doing full hour episodes. No, they're kind of back down to like 45, 40 after that first one.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
How the
But
rest of the
it's
season
about the Netflix show lengths. So yeah, Daredevil, check it out if you haven't already. It's on Disney Plus. Fantastic. Very happy about it. I watched one other show this week, and it's not even something I was trying to watch. Like, other people had it on, and I started tuning in. It's called Paradise. I don't know if you've heard about this show.
I've seen it advertised anytime I log into Disney Plus with Hulu. Like I've seen the big banner there, and I have actually heard good things about it.
Yes. So this is it's a very interesting show that kind of gets to where it's going a little backwards in the beginning. It doesn't reveal the situation that you're witnessing until like episode 2 or 3, and you keep uncovering little bits about stuff that you just don't know about. And so Sterling K. Brown, who I've always really enjoyed, he plays a Secret Service agent. He protects the president, who's played by James Marsden. Both of them kill it in their roles. Absolutely fantastic. The very first episode, stuff goes down. It's crazy. There's a conspiracy. And then they start revealing stuff about their situation. It turns out that I don't want to give too much away here, but there has been some sort of event that has caused these people to move into an underground sanctuary. They don't get into it immediately. They sort of slow reveal that this is what's happening, and like it kind of goes from being a like political drama to like an apocalyptic like survival show, like very strangely sideways and like surprisingly, and it gets there. It's honestly a very interesting show, man. Like I was hooked. I couldn't stop watching it, even though I wasn't trying to watch it. And yeah, man, I think this is a win. I think this is actually one of the better, like one of those dad shows that I've seen. It's actually a sci-fi, so like it starts off as like political. It gets into science fiction pretty quickly, and I'm very interested to see how things turn out and what they actually end up exploring with this. So yeah, I think Paradise is check it out. I believe, what's it on?
It's on Hulu.
It's on Hulu. Yeah, it's a Hulu original. Well, isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's absolutely. I guess another win for Disney. But check it out, man. It's worth a watch if you have Hulu, which a lot of people don't, I guess. But whatever.
Actually, I think Hulu's numbers have been pretty
Have they been good?
from what I've seen recently. I have it incorporated into my Disney Plus, so I have like there's a Hulu tab on my Disney Plus.
I have Disney Plus incorporated into my Hulu, actually. I did it the other way.
Oh, interesting.
Because I had Hulu already, and then they were like, you could add on Disney Plus. I was like, why not? So, no. Oh, the savings! Pay us, Disney. Pay us now.
Now they've just added an ESPN tab to my Disney Plus too, so they're incorporating more ESPN to it too. But
Yeah,
that's a conversation for a different.
I also have free ESPN with my deal, but whatever. Hey, that's TV. That's what we've been watching. We've also been playing some stuff a little bit. Looks like you have a particular opinion you would like to share here. If I'm reading this.
I mean, this is just kind of more of the same. I feel like I've brought this up before, but I've mainly for the past, about almost a month, I've been playing Avowed on Xbox, and I think Avowed, we did a whole episode devoted to our initial thoughts and reviewing the game, and ultimately with it, I think that early on in the first half, I'd say probably the first half of the game, I really was taking my time exploring and doing a lot of those things and investigating every nook and cranny to the point where I was nearing burnout on the game. And so there's essentially 4 really big open areas in the game. And by the time I was at the third one, I started to get like itching to be kind of done with it and starting to mainline through it. I've still done I've done all the side quests I found. I'm being thorough still while not like feeling like I need to fill out every corner of the map. And spoilers, not really spoilers, but like as far as areas of the game, I just got to the garden, which is like near the end game. I did message Gary, friend of the show, former co-host of the show, because he beat Avowed, and I said, hey, I'm at the garden, but how much more do I have left? And he said that I probably have about 2 more hours left of the game. So okay. I'm just trying to finish it at this point. I really enjoyed it. For me, it's overstaying its welcome a little bit, but that's probably my own fault.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my opinion of the game is I think some things for this genre, this kind of Skyrim-esque, choice-based exploration game, action-adventure game, I think some of the shortcuts it takes and things it simplifies are good, and I like them. But then there's other things that I'm like, wish they had expanded this a little bit more. So, like, it's kind of that... talking about Mickey 17 being a 7 out of 10, like I think Avowed is kind of a 7 out of 10 game for me. I think it looks really good. It's well made. It's made with care and some good lore and some good story. But it's a little simple, especially in like the crafting and weapon upgrading and so on and so forth. And now I feel like I can say this with authority since I'm almost done with the game. I think I've put upwards of 30 hours into the game. Maybe even 35 hours at this point. So put a good chunk of time into it. This is a game you probably could beat in 15 hours if you wanted to. And I'm put over double those hours into it.
A lot of open world games are like that, though. That's not. Yeah, so, I've also, my opinion about Avowed has evolved a bit since we talked about it last. I really like this game, but yeah, it is a stripped down Skyrim, just like how Outer Worlds is a stripped down Fallout, pretty much in space. I still feel that way about it, but I feel like this game actually does a lot of really interesting things. One of the things I really like about it is that your NPCs that walk around with you, they say things as you're walking that are relevant to what's around you. And I've noticed that they'll remind you that a quest is in the area that you are in. It'll be like, hey, aren't we supposed to be looking for something around here? And I'll be like, oh shit, I'll look at my quest. I'll be like, oh, you're right, there is something around. And like, I think that's really well programmed. There's little things like that, a lot of quality of life stuff. I think Avowed's an absolute win, but it's still, yeah, probably about a 7 out of 10.
I like that. Like, I like that enemies don't respawn. So I like that if you clear out an area, that it stays permanently cleared out, and it feels like you affected the world, like you cleared out the enemies there, and you helped this area. I like that. I think that the weapon and combat system is good. I like using guns more than I expected to. I like using wands more than I expected to, but I do still like using a single-handed sword and shield also. The problem is, like, all the weapons of similar types have the same stats. They just have different buffs. So depending on how much you upgrade them is really the only thing that affects stats. But if you upgrade another weapon of the same type to the same point you've upgraded another, their actual, like, offensive stats are exactly the same. It's just they have different buffs and effects, which to me then doesn't encourage you to switch things up as much. And I think if the game also had a skill system similar to Skyrim or something, where like the more you use this one thing, the better you get at it, it would encourage you to change it up and change up the way you're playing. But this game doesn't do that. No. There is a skill tree, and you can invest skills and get better in certain areas, but like it's just not enough. I've been using basically the same weapon types for the whole game because that's what I felt comfortable with. And again, maybe that's my own fault for not switching it up more, but you know, maybe that's also why I'm getting bored of the game, is because like all my combat's the exact same because I'm using the same weapons and the same
entirely possible
basic tactics.
The combat is good, yeah, but it's not the deepest for sure, but it is solid. And yeah, I don't know. Avowed,
but the game looks good. I haven't really encouraged any glitches, you know, anything like that. Like, it runs well, so I can't complain about any of that.
It's a solid game, and if it had come out like a few years ago, it would have blown everyone's minds. But you know, it's for now, it's fine, and it's a good game. Play it. It's free on Game Pass. You know, I don't have any hate for it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's, you know, definitely not Game of the Year or anything.
Right.
Speaking of Game of the Year, though.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man. So, you know me. You know what I'm about. I'm about Monster Hunter. Pretty hardcore. I really love it. It's one of my favorite. I've played every single one since PlayStation 2. So, like, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but if anyone's an authority on these games, I'm definitely one of them. Like, I've played all of them. I'm familiar with how they've changed. When I first started playing Wilds, I wasn't sold on it. They change a lot of stuff from like the standard how Monster Hunter works. Monster Hunter, typically you have a town, you're in that town, you pick a mission, a little horn sounds, you get sent out on the mission, blah blah blah. Worlds was a little bit more open, but you would still have to get teleported to regions and stuff. In Wilds, it's all one contiguous map that you can like traverse. There are some load screens between the different sections, but it is a place that is connected. There is no main town. You are a part of an expedition in this one that is exploring the Forbidden Lands, or whatever they call them. So that's exciting, you know, and like the base camps move around and stuff. You can set up temporary little camps and that kind of thing. You still have all the amenities that you would have in a town, you know, but it just has a different vibe. When you're online, you can also see other people running around and stuff. Like, you can just be in a lobby, and that's cool. And it almost brings it into the realm of MMOs. Like, you are playing with other people, and they can randomly join your hunts and stuff. Very cool, very seamless. The things that were throwing me, this game's a lot more story driven than past ones had been. Like, your main character actually speaks, which they I don't remember them ever really doing. The story's a
This
lot.
was the thing that got me interested about this game a little bit more because I'm not a Monster Hunter guy.
Yeah,
I never have been, but I did hear that this one was a little bit more story
it's
focused
a
and
lot more
things there.
story
And I'm like,
focused.
that starts to make me raise an eyebrow. I'm like, I like story focused. I like things I can get invested in that way. So I don't know if this is a little bit more accessible in that way or if it's still truly a Monster Hunter game to its core.
It is still a core Monster Hunter game, man. It really is. There's a lot of quality of life fixes that they sort of fix for, the more. A lot of people complain about stuff in Monster Hunter because, like, you actually have to worry about running out of ingredients and stuff. You have to go harvest, all this other stuff. You have to plan your meals, and, like, you run out of money and stuff. Like, it is there's a lot of depth to it. It's complicated, and it can be difficult. They streamlined a lot of that in this. Ingredients are easier to get. You're not really running out of potions and stuff all that often, especially if I don't know, they made gathering a little easier.
So the hardcore fans are getting mad that they've streamlined a few things to be more appealing to the casuals like me.
It is a bit more casual, and yeah, like there is a level of annoyance with it, but honestly, it doesn't ruin the game for me in any way. Like it's just I don't have to go around gathering herbs as much. Whatever, it's fine. Whetstones are infinite now. You don't have to have a supply of whetstones to sharpen your weapon. Stuff like that, yeah, sure, they appeal to the casual gamer. I'm fine with that. It makes it more accessible, and it makes my favorite franchise more successful. But yeah, so it's very narrative. They have these new mounts called Sacred that you can customize. They're like bird, lizard, wyvern things that they can run, they can jump, they can climb, and they can glide a little bit. Pretty cool all around thing. The traversal with them for me is a little wonky, and it takes some getting used to. But all in all, it's fine. They also have an auto run feature that'll take you straight to the monster you're hunting, which in the old games, man, you had to chase them down, you had to throw paint on them to know where they went on the map. That stuff's kind of gone. Fine. What this game does, though, that like anyone would really like, the combat's still solid, all the weapons are still there. I feel like they explain the weapon combos a little better. For the first time ever, because of your mount, you can actually have a second weapon that you can switch out when you're on your mount during hunts. You can switch weapons, which you've never been able to do before. But a lot of what's really good about this game is very subtle that I don't know if people are really appreciating. The monster fights are intense, man. Like some of the monsters can affect the terrain in ways that don't really feel like scripted or like oh, he makes a block come out like this and then it goes back down. Like it's not like that. Like I was fighting the sand creature in the desert, right? And he made a whirlpool that started sucking me into the ground, just like out of nowhere, dude. And I had to climb my way out of it. He's jumping at me, lightning storms going off, crazy stuff like that. I fought another thing in the water. He was sending tidal waves my way. Like they're interacting with the environment in ways they haven't before. The monster fights, I feel, have just gotten better and deeper. And so, as a fan, I think Monster Hunter Wilds deserves the success it's having right now. Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead. I'll give this a 9 out of 10. Like, no hesitation there. 10 out of 10? No, it's not a perfect game. Monster Hunter has always had its issues. As a fan, I just kind of overlook them. But I do give this a 9 out of 10. It broke Capcom's record for most copies sold on day one. So, people are excited about this one. I think you should check it out because it's definitely going to be staying in the popular discussion for a while here. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, man, I'm rocking the gun lance again, and it feels good.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know we say this a lot, and it's kind of a cop out, but I feel like I'm not confident enough that I would be into it or enjoy it to spend full price on the game. If this had been like a day-and-date Game Pass release and you were playing it, I would absolutely jump on and try it out. But I'm like, this is probably for me until that's a sale or that it is on Game Pass, which stinks because then all the hardcore fans are already done with it, and it's like,
yeah, but
you don't get the same experience.
You'll be on the wave with the sale people. Like you'll all be playing for the first time together, and it'll still be fun. I mean, hey, that's what I did for Alan Wake 2 when you told me it was an amazing game. I waited for a sale, got it, played it. It's in my top 10 games of all time. You know what I mean? Like, easily, like, and it's probably in the top 5. That game's fantastic. Like, so, yeah, wait for a sale. And check it out, sink your teeth in. This is a good entry point into the series, just like World. World was also a fantastic entry to, or a point of entry to the series. So, yeah, everyone, play Monster Hunter Wilds. Fresh picks of the week.
Well, I think that this is pretty obvious what yours is going to be.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, it's pretty easy for me. This is definitely Monster Hunter Wilds is my fresh pick of the week. No surprise there. I want to play it right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I
want to.
I know that.
I want to ignore my newborn son for this game, Drew.
I know that we didn't necessarily rave about it, but I think Mickey 17 is a unique enough experience to make it my fresh pick of the week. It's a cool, I mean, it is based on a novel, but it's a new original movie from Bong Joon-ho in movie theaters. Go check it out. It's a good time. It's a good time in the movie.
It is a good time. Yeah. Don't let us. I hope we didn't not sell it. It was good. I liked it, and I am thrilled that I got to see it on the big screen. So yeah, absolutely, Mickey 17 worthy addition to Fresh Picks of the Week. Hey everybody, thanks for watching Fresh Out the Podcast. That was episode.
I do have a question before we go.
Oh,
I do have a question for you. I'm sorry to.
Oh no!
Interrupt.
Please, I am excited.
Are you going to be checking out the Electric State?
Bro, I've heard. Oh man, so I know about the Electric State because it's a tabletop role playing game, and you're about to hear in a second why that's important to me. But yeah, it's from Free League Publishing. So we've actually done a video on our YouTube channel, Fresh Out the Box, about the Electric State tabletop RPG.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, so if you wanna check out a little bit about what I think about the setting, it's all there. Me and Gary talk about it. Yeah, man, it's a really interesting setting. It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic thing mixed with a little bit of the Matrix, and then I don't know, it kind of has the Big O, everyone lives in these fortress cities now kind of thing, and the land between is sort of forbidden from the wars, but awesome sci-fi setting. But then I heard who's in it. I don't hate Millie Bobby Brown or anything. She's in some really good shit. I love Stranger Things. I hear Honora Holmes is really good. That kind of stuff. She's in some really bad crap. What was it? Damsel. That stuff. It's just, yeah.
The interesting thing about her, in my opinion, is that she is a Netflix star.
She is.
Has huge, of course, Stranger Things is huge. And it's probably the biggest thing from Netflix to affect popular culture. Honestly, I think Stranger Things is Netflix's biggest property, period. I don't even know what follows it. Maybe
I think Stranger Things helped the resurgence of Dungeons and Dragons to the mainstream. You know what I mean?
I think that's
pretty big
fair.
deal.
I honestly I really do think that that's fair, and it's made it's made those 80s nerdy things that were nerdy to still now, has made them cool again. I think Stranger Things has affected the culture. It is easily Netflix's biggest property. I don't even know what to say is the runner-up for Netflix other than something like Bridgerton. I don't know what is culturally seismic in that way from Netflix other than this. If you look at obviously Millie Bobby Brown, huge breakout star of Stranger Things. So is Finn Wolfhard, who has had a little bit more of a successful film career. But Millie Bobby Brown, she did do the Godzilla franchise, right? Did Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, but she was not even in the most recent Godzilla Kong movie. Otherwise, it's two Enola Holmes movies, which were Netflix movies. Damsel, which is a Netflix movie. Now, granted, it was a huge movie for Netflix in 2024. I don't know if anything ended up surpassing it. At the time, it was like Netflix's most watched movie ever. Like the minutes watched of that movie are insane. Millie Bobby Brown, clearly a huge star for Netflix, and people will watch her on Netflix, but she has not equated to being a box office draw in movies outside of Netflix, in movies at the theater, which I think is really interesting about her as a movie star persona. Yeah, this movie, it's like rumored to have cost upwards of $320 million, which is insane.
The
It's
Electric
directed by
State
the
cost
Russo,
$320 million.
allegedly so. It's directed by the Russo brothers, who directed a little movie called Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War and Captain America Civil War.
That explains Chris Pratt's involvement.
And yeah, exactly. And so, and they're returning, they're about to be working with Robert Downey Jr. again, playing Doctor Doom. They're back at Marvel, but this is another one of their directorial efforts that is going straight to Netflix. Huge budget action movie, and the reviews are just tearing it.
Dog shit. Yeah, it's real bad.
I have seen so many 1-star reviews pop up on my beloved Letterboxd, and it seems like this is a big stinker. Unfortunately, like, it's one of those things when you start hearing these, like, it just makes me want to watch it even more. Like, I gotta see what's the $320 million 1-star Netflix movie.
I can tell you, I will turn it on and watch it as long as I can.
Yeah, I was just curious. It's out today on Netflix, so it is now streaming in your home.
I was actually very interested until the reviews came out. I was very interested until then, and so I guess I'll check it out.
It's already probably number one in the top 10. So yeah, like in the top 10 on Netflix. I'm sure it's already there. Yeah.
See, Netflix is kind of like, I don't think they want to be known as this, but they're kind of a good home for stinkers. Because it doesn't have to be a good movie. It doesn't have to review well, as long as a lot of people watch it, and they will, because they already have Netflix.
No, they want it to be something you can throw on and be on your phone and have it on in the background, and then just put it on again and again.
It's a really interesting company, man. It's very interesting. Yeah. Hey, Netflix, how about let me polish a turd and put it up on your TV for you, Netflix.
I was curious to see if you'd be checking it out. So maybe next week we'll talk about it. Yeah. Talk about it. We'll see.
Well, if there are no further questions, Drew.
That is it. I promise not to interrupt you this time.
It's all good. Yeah, that was episode 145 of Fresh Out the Podcast. Thanks everyone for watching. I am Jehananan, the board game guru, game master extraordinaire. What's a game master? Why do I always talk about it? I play TTRPGs over on Fresh Out the Box. That is the sister show of this show. And we play all kinds of games from like Green Road Publishing, Free League, including games like the Electric State, The Expanse, all kinds of crazy properties and stuff going on over there. And, I love throwing zombies at people, so come check it out. It's very fun. Yeah, I've been Jehananan.
And I am the professional media and movie mastermind, the Funhouse, Drew Munhausen. This has been episode 145 of Fresh Out the Podcast.
Thanks, everyone. Stay fresh.